Friend, Shabbat Shalom to everyone. It's nice seeing everyone here. Thank you for the opportunity to speaking with you this evening. Joseph, the son of Jacob, is one of the most complicated, intelligent, and tormented personalities in the Torah. All those adjectives go together. The Torah spends more time speaking about Joseph than any character in the Torah. He has a rocky life. He endures much personal pain. Some of it is self-afflicted, and some of it is beyond his control. He is a victim of certain forces. His family was toxic. It was a family of favoritism, of distrust, and of lies. His father favored him. Joseph acted to his other brothers as if he was better than they were. They came to hate him, and they conspired to kill him, throwing him into a pit. He's sold to traders who bring him to Egypt. His brothers pretend that he is dead, but they really don't know what his fate was. Now, how does one survive being hated so intensely that your family wants you dead? What's it like to be all alone in this world? To be exiled into a land completely foreign to you. But Joseph is a survivor. He becomes a trusted servant of Potiphar. He achieves trust, becomes the head of Potiphar's household. Yet he is entrapped by Potiphar's wife, who tries to seduce him. And when he rightfully refuses, she accuses him of sexual impropriety. He is a victim of her lies, and he ends up in jail, abandoned, forgotten, forsaken. His situation seems hopeless, and his life seems to have ended. It doesn't end there. I think I'm making a pretty good case that his life is pretty difficult. I don't know if I could make it in the Supreme Court, because it's hard to convince them of anything now, but that's a whole other topic. But he takes on leadership in jail. He becomes an interpreter of dreams, and ultimately is brought to Pharaoh to interpret Pharaoh's dreams. And in the end, by a turn of fate, he becomes, I always say this, he's the Henry Kissinger of Egypt. He has great power, which he uses wisely. And then something happens that disrupts his life. His brothers come to Egypt, and he must determine, are they changed people or as evil as before? And then there is this moment of choice. Should he be embittered and vengeful about them in his life? Should he be controlled by his past, unable to navigate into a better future? Or can he forgive, move forward, having strength, becoming stronger by his misfortunes? Joseph is able to do that, and in the end, because of his growth, reconciliation occurs. He is the great example of our capacity to overcome our past wounds, to transcend the unfairness of our lives, and to see life as something far in the distant instead of something far in the past. Now this portion, and it always seems, the Torah reading always seems to fit reality. It's amazing. This portion is quite poignant as we mourn the death of Senator Bob Dole. Senator Dole was very Joseph-esque, if there is such a word. He confronted so much suffering, but he triumphed in the end. And I read every obituary of his, one after another. The New York Times, our local paper that had a wonderful obituary, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post. And so you kind of glean together things that you know about him and things that you forgot about him and things that you should know about him. So he had this will of steel. His story is one of the most remarkable examples of the triumph of the human will. He comes from this poor town in Kansas. He dreamed of becoming a doctor. He borrowed $300 to go to college. Then something happened called World War II, and he volunteered for the military. We are told, and this is his famous story, but I think it's so worth telling it over and over and over again. He was a sophomore when he enlisted in the army and was shipped off to Italy in late 1944. On April 14th, 1945, less than 1 month before the end of World War II, less than 1 month, his squad was trying to retake Hill 913 in central Italy. And when he crawled to rescue a wounded soldier, Nazi fire ripped into his right shoulder, shredding bone and leaving him partially paralyzed in the mud. He went home in a body cast. He began 3 years ordeal to reclaim his health. He lost 70 pounds and nearly died twice. His right arm remained paralyzed and mostly useless for the rest of his life. He spent more than 2 years at Percy Jones Army Medical Center in Battle Creek, Michigan, where he regained the use of his legs and his left arm. Dole had to relearn to eat, to use the toilet, to write with his left hand. That was often none. For years after, as we know, and this is something he held a pen in his right hand so people wouldn't want to shake hands with him that way, and it helped him, I think, with his pain. His medical bills were paid for by people in his hometown who threw in coins and for the local drugstore. It was in a cigar box, and he had the cigar box his whole life. He had 7 operations. His surgeon transplanted tendons from Dole's leg to his right shoulder. A chunk of his scapula was removed, and muscles in Dole's neck was reconnected to his right arm. I don't know how one lives through all that. And Senator Dole said something in relationship to that. He said, when you join that group, you say, why me? But after you've been there a while, you have to decide what you're going to do with your life. Without the use of his right hand, law school at Washburn University was challenging, and he'd take class lectures because he couldn't take notes quickly with his left hand, and at night he'd listen and jot shorthand notes, learning to commit vast amounts of material to memory. And then we know his rise in politics up to the majority leader of the Senate. He ran for president. And interestingly enough, we know him as being such a conservative person. I'm sure many people are wondering why laud this very politically conservative person, because his politics are really irrelevant to what I'm talking about. He opposed Medicare, but he supported civil rights and the Voting Rights Act. And of course, his experience led to his dedication to the passing of the 1990 Americans with Disabilities Act, which guarantees rights and improves the day-to-day lives of individuals with disabilities. But in 1996, he, as you know, he resigned from the Senate as he's running for the presidency, and because he said, okay, I got to do this full time. People aren't going to take me seriously. And he made this remarkable speech that I want to share with you that I think is really the essence of my message. He said, my time to leave this office has come, and I will seek the presidency with nothing to fall back on but the judgment of the people, and nowhere to go but the White House or home. And I will then stand before you without office or authority, a private citizen, a Kansan, an American, just a man. But I will be the same man I was when I walked into the room, and the same man I was yesterday, and the day before, and a long time ago, when I arose from my hospital bed and was permitted by the grace of God to walk again into the world. And I trust in the hard way, for little has come to me except the hard way, which is good because we have a hard task ahead of us. I mean, that's really a mood. It's so interesting. You have an image of a man politically, then you read about the background of him, and your image of him totally changes. He's really a remarkable person. That studying him all week, it just moved me. So we often speak of PTSD, a post-traumatic stress disorder, which has this lasting impact on people, the trauma of their lives. But there is something that psychologists have also spoken about, which is post-traumatic growth. The notion that suffering and distress can potentially yield positive change. And we find that in Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and other faiths that speaks about the transformative power of suffering. Not something you ever want, but it's something that we can grow from. During and after the most trying times, some of us see growth in ourselves in a whole range of areas of our lives. Sometimes it's an upheaval that unleashes this hidden strength and courage, the opportunity for a new beginning. You know, Winston Churchill once said, if you're going through hell, keep going. That is Senator Dole. He kept going. What a model of a human life. Scars, pain, suffering, trauma, disability, and his life could have been over. But he had this capacity to transcend his hurts, his agonies. He rejected being a victim, and he discovered this incredible strength of courage. You know, Senator Tom Daschle wrote in the Wall Street Journal, you know the Bob Dole who called up a Florida dentist in 1993 to encourage him after losing his right arm and helping him find a specialist for a prosthetic arm. Or the Bob Dole who took a detour from 1996 presidential campaign to attend the graduation party of a young girl in Indianapolis who had been partially paralyzed by a car accident. He was a great teacher about opening our hearts and responding to suffering. Now, I don't know anything about his religion. It doesn't really that interest me. But his life was a faith text. A faith in God is not a promise of a perfect life. I always talk about that. A faith in God is not about a painless life. God doesn't have that power. But God is the source of hope, the reassurance that we can triumph, that we have untapped resources, and that we are blessed with people who will hold our hands, and that we are committed to creating a world of kindness and support for those who are in need. That, to me, is what belief in God is. So my prayer tonight is for him to rest in peace. He has earned that. For his family to be comforted, in our country to honor him. For each of us to learn from him how to confront our difficulties, our individual hells with strength and dignity. Senator Dole, you have taught us what it means to be strong and courageous. Thank you for that lesson. We all certainly need it. Amen.